Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Breck, and if you don't know me, well then maybe you should actually subscribe to my channel. Just kidding. That would be such a weird intro if I actually did that. And of course I start filming and my phone vibrates because that's how life goes. So I honestly don't know where to begin with this video. How about we start with where I've been for the past couple of days. So where have I been? Well, I'm going to begin with the wedding. I think I've uploaded one video since the wedding, and the wedding was on the 9th, so that goes to show how much I've been uploading since the wedding. And the reason why I'm bringing up the wedding is because it is a vital part of information to this story. On June 9th, 2018, last week, I gave my life over to the Lord. And if you don't want to listen to this story or this story time or anything, then by all means, please click out of the story. But if you are still here, thank you for staying and thank you for listening to what I have to say. The day before the wedding, I was experiencing an extremely bad anxiety attack. If you guys have not been updated, you're not added on my Facebook and all of that stuff, as my true friends, I should really start updating my blogs and all of the other little funky websites that I have. But if you're not actually a true friend, then it is absolutely vital for you to know that every day since I got out to California, I have been experiencing anxiety. I've been experiencing stress and extreme depression. And it just got to a point where I started to really, really feel it. So I turned to my mom one day, the day before the wedding, and I said, Mom, I'm experiencing extremely bad anxiety, and it's extremely hard for me to not allow myself to have an attack, despite how much self-care I am giving myself. And my mom says to me, okay, well, we went outside and I pulled out my e-cig, started smoking my e-cig. My mom pulls out her phone and she goes to a Bible app. I forget what it is, whatever it is. I can link it down in the description or whatever. I think there's a website to it as well. And she goes, okay, well, we're going to look up, and on the app, we're going to look up, so I'm going to look it up on my Facebook, so I actually posted it to my Facebook as well at some point. But on the app, she said, okay, well, we're going to go into this app and we're going to look up anxiety. And so we did. And this is what we found. Give me just a second to find it. Alright, that took long enough. I finally found it purely through my memory, which Google is not great. Thanks, Google. But anyway, it's Psalms 23, 1-6, and it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right path for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And after my mom read that, it really, really opened me up to, being able to talk about what I've been going through for the past 8 years, on my cousin's wedding night. And, you know, it says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And my mom was explaining to me what the rod and the staff means. And, you know, the staff would be like the shepherd's hook, you know? The shepherd would take the hook and pull the sheep back in the right direction in order for them to not fall off a cliff, and a rod would be used to be able to tap the sheep's ankles to make them go the right direction. And basically what the rod and the staff is guiding me in the right direction, whether I know that I'm being guided or not. And that's why it says that your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And it just really like spoke to me. So anyway, the next day at the wedding, I was just kind of expecting a normal wedding. I've been to so many different weddings because I have so many different cousins. And it was just, I don't know what it was about this one. I mean, of course, I enjoyed every single wedding that I've been to individually and separately in their own way. But something about this one, when my cousin got married to her husband, the ceremony that they performed with the foot washing ceremony and the worship, and almost like it being a sermon as well, it just kind of, I just remember sitting at, you know, my assigned table after that, and looking over at the pastor and his wife and some other kid who I still think about. I wish I got his name. But I looked over at the pastor and his wife, and something was telling me, you need to go over there. And I didn't know what it was, but something was telling me, you need to go over there and you need to talk to him. And so I did, and I got up and I said, I just wanted you to know that I'm not a Christian, and I've been going through so much in the past 8 years since I walked away from the Lord. And I just, by the way, I'm sorry if you can hear that outside. People choose to do the weirdest things while I'm filming. That's somebody watering their grass or washing off something on the concrete. Anyway, so I just looked at him and I said, you know, I'm not a Christian, and I just wanted you to, you know, I've been going through so much over the past 8 years. I've been, you know, in a secret relationship that the majority of people didn't know that I was in this relationship, and it was a very abusive relationship in many, many ways. And I just really wanted you to know that I'm ready. And he kind of passes me over to his wife, who stood there, and she talked to me for hours. And I told her, you know, I live up in Oregon, and when I got up to Eugene, I was homeless for an entire month when I was there because of the struggles that my work put me through, which I will do a story time on that at some point, guys. I just got to figure out the legalities of that, but there will be a story time coming about what I went through once I got up to Oregon. So be prepared for that. But anyway, I told her, you know, since I got up to Oregon and there was an issue going on with my paychecks and they weren't paying me enough, and somehow it was legal for them to do that. Despite the hours I was working full-time hours. I should have been paid a lot more than I was being paid. I was homeless. And not because I didn't have a place to go to. I had a place to go to. But the place to go to was all the way in Pleasant Hill, which was a good 20-minute drive away. And my checks looked like $200 a paycheck bi-weekly. So I eat $200 worth of food bi-weekly. So that being said, I didn't have the gas to get back home. Thank God for the guy, because he took care of my cat for me and housed my belongings for me. But by the end of it, he was just like, you've got to leave. And I'm just like, I haven't even been here, you know what I mean? But I mean, I can see why he was so upset by it. And a lot of the issues I got myself into, but at the same time, I was just still so distraught and unhappy, and I felt like I didn't deserve I didn't deserve half the things that I've been through, you know what I mean? The issues that I've been going through over the past 8 years slowly got worse and worse and worse, to the point where I never once experienced happiness at a certain point. For a period of an entire year, never once did I experience happiness. I never once got what I wanted. You know, I never once was surprised by somebody who loved me. I never once felt care from people. I swear to God, I'm trying not to cry, and these are not tears of sadness, but it just got so hard for me, to the point where I was trying my hardest not to have suicidal thoughts, not to want to kill myself. Because even though it felt like nobody cared, like nobody loved me, I knew that they did. And I didn't want them. I didn't want them to think I was selfish for not thinking about them if I were to commit suicide. I never let them in. I never told them what I was going through, because I was fearful of being judged. I was sad and unhappy, and on top of that, I didn't want them to try and bring me back to church, to bring me back to the Lord, because if God could let me go through this, then why would he even be considered a God if there was a God? You know what I'm saying? But after that day that I gave my life over to the Lord, and I realized how much he really does love me, I learned of something called spiritual warfare. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm still new to this whole thing, but as far as I know, spiritual warfare is where God allows the enemy to do what he wants to you in order for you to come back to him. And it could be demon possession, it could be depression, it could be really bad anxiety, it could be witchcraft, or which there's nothing, I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with it. I dabbled in that myself, you know, but I'm just not going to talk about that because that's a really touchy subject for other people, so we'll just leave it at that. But all I'm saying is there is something called spiritual warfare, and it is what I have been experiencing for the past 8 years. Since I dated the first girl that I had ever dated. And I experienced depression, real, true depression, for the first time ever. And I experienced my very first anxiety attack for the first time ever. And I experienced people not caring about me for the first time ever. And to this day, I'm still scared of them, and sad that they'll never know what they put me through. But at the same time, I put myself through it. I'm the one that walked away from God. I'm the one that decided to go down the path that I went down. But all of that changed at the wedding. And I was drunk off my ass when I gave my life over to the Lord. So don't think that, you know, I'm a perfect woman, and that, you know, giving your life over to the Lord has to happen in the perfect moment or anything. I was drunk. And I don't drink, you guys know me, I don't drink, but I was drunk when I gave my life over to him. And then, you know, the wedding happened, the bride and the groom leave, we go home. Not the next day, but the next weekend the next day, on a Sunday. Because the wedding happened on Saturday, so it was on a Sunday. I decided I wanted to go to the church that the pastor that was at the wedding teaches at. And this church is called C3 San Diego, and it's the central church. And I decided that I wanted to go there. And my mom's like, "Are you sure you want to go there? It's really showy. The worship section is extremely long, and it It's almost like going to a concert or a festival, and I'm like sitting here thinking, Mom, do you know me? Yes, I want to go, especially after what you said. So I went to this church, and my cousin and I, different cousin than the one that got married, my cousin and I, we arrive a little late because, I'm up in Orange County and this church is down in San Diego. We left an hour beforehand, traffic happens, da da da. But the sermon was on David and Goliath. And one part of the sermon that really, really spoke to me was this one verse. I don't remember what verse it was, but it said specifically in big, bold letters on the screen behind him as he, almost as if he had a boom mic, when he was saying this. And it says, "Have you seen the giant?" I know you're probably not going to understand what I'm talking about, but let me explain. The story of David and Goliath is a story of how a little Palestinian boy who prances around and plays the harps, and he is a shepherd to the sheep, and he is the youngest in the entire family in a period of time where the oldest were obvious with more value than the younger ones. And he's this tiny little boy, and he goes off and he takes down a gigantic 6-foot, 7-foot man named Goliath with his slingshot. And basically, I find that a lot of times when these stories are being told in church, they speak to you in a completely different way than the story is perceived, because we have these things that are weighing heavy on our hearts, and God speaks to us between the lines rather than what, the book says itself or whatever. And that's how people come up with, being gay is wrong and this and that. And, I'm not going to get into that. That's a thing for another time. But where "Have You Seen the Giant" comes in is the sermon was about the enemy, or the devil, Satan, if you will. And he was talking about how the problem does not lie within your mother, your grandmother, your sister, your brother, your father. It doesn't lie with your work, your coworkers. They might be what is causing the problem, but they're all little things compared to what is allowing these things to happen. Have you seen the giant? The giant is the enemy. The giant is the devil. The giant is Satan. He is the one that is causing these issues to happen. He has the power over you. And when you decide that you are no longer walking, he takes over and says, "Ooh, that means I can do whatever I want with you." And that's why people are so upset and so sad these days. It's like my uncle was saying, literally days before the wedding. You could have the biggest house. You could have the best husband, best wife. You can have the most kind and caring and the best kids in the entire world. But if you're not a child of God, well, everybody's a child of God, but if you are not walking with Jesus, if you are not holding his hand, you will find a reason to be upset. You will find a reason to be unhappy. And all these things that have just been happening over the past few days have just been, it was just like a load of bricks, just like pounding on my heart, like to the point where I was like, oh my God, and then I realized it's time. It's time for me to take his hand again, to hold his hand. And all of a sudden, all those bricks that had been loading onto my heart year after year, day after day for the past 8 years just lifted all at once. And it was like I was weightless. Like I was in space. Like I could jump 15 feet into the air and only float back to Earth. It was the most beautiful thing that I had ever experienced. And if you don't understand what a spiritual experience feels like, and why people go to religion, or what's a better way to put it? People go to a living faith. It's because when you experience the reality of it for the first time, it's not like anything that you have ever experienced in your entire life. It's like a weight is being lifted, and a happiness happier than anything you've ever felt before. Waking up on Christmas Day to find out that you're going to Disneyland happy, it's happier than that. It's like a peak point in a manic episode in bipolar disorder that does have happiness in it. Now keep in mind that the opposite of happiness is sadness. So the opposite of depression is not happiness. The opposite of depression is mania. Mania is not happiness. But imagine a manic episode where there was happiness, which is a real thing. It is a real thing. I don't have bipolar disorder, so I can't really say that is what it is, but I have a friend who is bipolar, and she says yes, that is exactly what it feels like, you know, but better, experiencing this happiness that you feel, this high feeling almost, this spiritual high. It's different than anything you will ever feel in your entire life. And it's unfortunate that people who are closed off from the Lord and from God, who go their entire lives without knowing Jesus, without knowing God, will never be able to experience that. It breaks my heart. Because I was one of the fortunate ones who came to the Lord and walked away and came back and walked away several times. So I got a chance to experience that multiple times. And it's sad because there are a lot of people out there who will never experience that. And I really just hope that if you're watching this, if you're still watching this, then you're here for a reason. And I hope that you make a decision today to give your life over to the Lord, to sit down and pray about it, to get on that computer, and if you're in the San Diego area, look up the sermons for C3 Church in San Diego. I believe there are 3 or 4 different churches. There's like the Central Church, the North Church, the South Church, and the East Church, I think. But there are 3 or 4 different churches of C3. If you're in the San Diego area, I recommend that you go to that church. But of course, you're going to have to find one that really resonates with you. And I really hope that my story has touched you and I changed someone's life today. Thank you.